As the 2011 Wayne Hills baseball season gets poised for another championship run, I'm here with Coach Goldstein, Coach Goldy. Going into the year, Wayne Hills loses three of their key players: Stephen Levenbrook, pitcher and second baseman, Jordan Kessel, the catcher, and of course, Kevin Solomon, the Division I first baseman. Now, this team has some experience coming into 2011, but how did they replace those three key guys?
Well, John, as you know, graduation happens every year. That's not a new problem to any school around the country. Kids leave, and if you have what we like to believe that we have here, which is a program, the next in line step up and they're ready to go and carry on the tradition.
Now, last year's team made it into counties and states. They had a decent run both ways. They won the county championship 2 years ago. Now, this year's team has some pretty high expectations despite losing those three players we mentioned. What kind of expectations do they have going into 2011, and where would you put a limit on the capabilities of this team?
Well, the bar is actually very high this year. As you know, we played 6 sophomores last year, and like you said before, we qualified for the state tournament. We played pretty deep into the county tournament, not as deep as we would have liked to have gone, but again, playing 6 sophomores, all that did was, like you said before, give them experience, toughen them up for this year, and the bar is very high. It's a junior-dominated team with a lot of good seniors to help carry us to where we want to be.
Well, that experience will certainly help as we go into the playoffs later in the season. We'll start off here on the pitching mound, the most important position of any baseball team, and this Wayne Hills team is not lacking pitching by any means. They bring back 3 juniors, all of whom got experience on the mound last year: Troy Zaffino, Chris Amato, and Steve Adesso. What will those 3 pitchers bring to this Wayne Hills team?
Well, a lot of experience, like you said, and 3 very, very lively arms. We are counting on those 3 to have great years, and like you said, the greatest thing about the 3 of them is that they're only juniors. So, we have them for 2 years. They had great seasons as sophomores, and now you just got to sprinkle in, a few seniors, guys like Brian Dowling, Anthony Scudillo, Kyle Zarnecki. And then if, some of our younger arms, some of the sophomore kids like maybe an Eric Moskler or a Christian Rodriguez or a Mark Mbimbo could pitch in, we're set up to have a pretty good pitching staff.
Now, talking about those seniors, Scudillo, Zarnecki, Rubino, and who am I missing?
No, I left out Rubino. You got them all. I was the one who left out Rubino.
Well, how is the rotation shaping up? Because there's 6 or 7 guys on this pitching staff that are all worthy of being starters. You could really only pick about 3. Who are the favorites right now to win the starting jobs?
Well, I would say we're probably going to try and go with a 4-man rotation. And I would say the 3 juniors that you mentioned earlier are locked into a position, a starting position, and then between Dowling and Scudillo, I would say is going to be that 4th guy. I would say Tyler Rubino is scheduled for bullpen duty. But you know what? You do have some weeks where you have 5 games in a row, and you may need a 5-man rotation. Good thing about us is we have the arms to handle that.
Well, the depth is certainly going to help out this team as they go through 2011.
Absolutely.
We're here at first base where, of course, the great Kevin Solomon reigned the last 2 seasons for Wayne Hills. Those are huge shoes to fill for whoever's going to take that spot. Who's it going to be in 2011?
Right now, it looks like Jason Avedisian has won that battle at first base. Jason comes up from a very strong JV team that went 21-2, and Jason was a very big reason why. He batted in the 700 area, on the JV team, and he's got some serious power.
Now, how is he going to be able to fill Kevin's shoes defensively? Because Kevin was a great defensive first baseman. Is Jason going to feel the pressure? I know he's a loose kid, or is he going to be able to fill those shoes adequately?
He feels no pressure at all. He's just, when he's on a baseball field, he's like the happiest kid alive. He loves it. Talking about filling Kevin's shoes, you're not going to fill Kevin's shoes. Like you had said before, he's a Division I first baseman playing up at UConn, who's actually ranked in the top 10 in the country. So, Kevin was a great player. Jason is not limited defensively. He's a bigger guy, but seeing him handle throws down there and picking balls in the dirt, he's got some decent range. Jason will be just fine over there. He reminds me of Keith Hernandez.
Oh, wow. That's some high praise for Jason.
Yeah, he can handle it.
We're at second base now, and it's always important to be strong up the middle defensively. The two juniors figure to be the two middle starting infielders, Troy Zaffino and Chris Amato. Now, it's unclear which guy's going to be at second and which is going to be at short. Who has the edge?
Well, it's unclear right now, to be quite honest with you. If you put a gun to my head, which I hope you would never do, I would say Troy will probably be the second baseman and Chris will be the shortstop. Now, they both pitch. So when Chris pitches, Troy's at short. When Troy pitches, Chris is at short. Okay, that opens up a spot at second base. And right now, the early clubhouse leader for that spot is yours truly, Johnny V. Good. Johnny Vittas looks like he has won the second base job when one of those guys pitch, and they pitch 2 out of every 3 games. So, Johnny V's looking like he's going to be in the lineup.
Well, growing up as a catcher and third baseman, I'm just trying to fit into this team in any role that I can. And when second base opens up, when it opened up, I wanted to try to take that spot, and I'm glad I could help out the team in any way possible. But going back to Troy and Chris, they're both great defensively. We know that, but what do they bring at the plate?
They're both very good offensive players too. They're going to be at the top of our lineup, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. They're going to be 2 out of the top 3 guys in the batting lineup, I can tell you that. And what they're going to do is they're going to set the table for our 4, 5, and 6 guys.
So I'm sure the 2011 season will rely heavily upon Zaffino and Amato up the middle.
Yes, it will.
Joined by assistant coach Goldstein at the hot corner, third base. Pretty much a sealed deal here at third. Justin Avedisian looks to be the starter going into the 2011 season, and I think Justin's poised for a big year. He came up midway through the season last year as a junior to start at third base. And Coach Goldy, what do you predict to see in Justin's future?
Well, the sky's the limit for Justin. Like you said, he cracked the lineup last year as a sophomore, about midway through the season, and earned enough praise to be named second-team All-County by the coaches in Passaic County. So the bad news about Justin is he's not a secret anymore. The other coaches know about him. The good news is, his bat, like we talked about his brother, when he gets a hold of the ball, it goes.
Oh, there's no question about that. Justin has some of the farthest hits out of anybody on this Wayne Hills team, so he'll definitely be a key factor going into the season. Going behind the dish for what is one of the most important positions on the baseball team. That's the catcher and catching position, and it figures to go to another junior in the starting lineup, Andrew Monahan. He's making the move from right field. What kind of adjustment is it going to take Andrew to be a successful catcher?
Well, growing up, Andrew was a catcher, so the actual adjustment was last year when we moved him from behind the dish to the outfield. So now he's kind of like coming home, to his natural position, and we're expecting big things out of Andrew.
And offensively, he's a good hitter as well. Where is he going to hit in the order, and what kind of role do you see him filling?
Well, it's interesting. Andrew's one of those multi-dimensional players. Last year, he led off some games, if you remember. This year, I'm thinking more, in the six area, 5, 6, 7 area. Want to get people on base for him. He's good with the stick, so we figure if we can get people on base for him, maybe he can be an RBI guy this year.
Well, junior Andrew Monahan will be the leader of this Wayne Hills team for the next 2 years behind the plate. Well, now we're in the outfield, so fittingly we'll talk about starting with our left field position. Justin Ferrarella was the starter defensively last year for Wayne Hills, and he figures to fill the same role again. What does Justin bring to this baseball team?
Justin brings probably his best attribute is his speed. He's probably one of the top 1, 2, or 3 fastest players on our team. He's a very solid defensive outfielder. We'd like to see more from him at the plate, but you know what? Anytime he puts the ball on the ground, he's a threat to beat it out to first base. And Justin brings leadership, He's one of those seniors that we were talking about before who, there's not too many of them, but he's one of them, and he's been in the lineup before, so we expect him to be a leader.
Now, Justin, like you said, wasn't in the lineup too often last year. He played a lot of defense and left, but was DH'd for a lot. How is Coach Rella going to handle that situation early in the season? Is he going to be DH for, and how long of a leash does Justin have once he gets into the lineup?
Well, actually, they were pretty loyal to him last year. He was not DH'd for as much as you think. And right now, it looks like he's going to start out in the lineup. And depending on how he does, will be, if he stays in the lineup. We have a lot of capable bats on the bench, which we'll get to later on in the segment. But, that's all going to depend on Justin.
Well, one thing Justin always brings is speed and leadership, and that's certainly going to be a big help to this team. Now talking about center field, senior Tyler Rubino seems to be one of just 2 or 3 seniors to make the starting lineup in 2011. Tyler also was a starter last year in center, so it's his second year out there. He's very familiar with the position, moving from first base and earlier in his Wayne Hills career. Now Tyler could be one of the best athletes on the team. How does his skill set help this Wayne Hills team?
You know, John, I just keep hearing you say another returner, another returner, another returner. That's good news for the Patriots. You know, I mean, they got a lot of guys who are game experience. Tyler, talk about leadership. He was one of the captains on the soccer team, so he's led before. He's going to lead up here. His speed is an asset beyond belief. He gets the balls in the alleys, and he's, like Andrew's the captain of the infield, Tyler's the captain of the outfield. You know, he's the center fielder. He makes all the calls. And
Tyler can hit a little bit as well. He's always one of the smoothest kids out there, so he's definitely going to be a big help to this team. Now discussing the right field position down the line, it seems to be a little bit of a competition between Steve Adesso and Joe Rapp. Steve is also a pitcher, so Joe will get his chance to play no matter what when Steven pitches. But in the early going here in spring training, who seems to have the edge as this full-time starter?
Well, Adesso is another one of those guys that you like to refer to as returners. Steve Adesso was the right fielder last year along with Andrew Monahan. They kind of split the job. So Steve has the experience. So, you know, Steve's probably going to get that first look in right field. But like you said, he's one of the 3, main cogs on the mound. So Joe Rapp will possibly be in right field. Another outfielder has emerged. Brian Dowling has been seeing some time in the outfield. He may be, a spot right fielder. He may be a spot center fielder when Tyler pitches. And, the emergence of a young sophomore, Micah Bate, he's in the mix as well. So that outfield spot, those outfield spots are still kind of up for grabs as we speak here today.
All right, well, the outfield will certainly have to be on their game in a very spacious Wayne Hills outfield. Joined by Coach Goldstein in the bullpen, which is always very important to bring home the W at the end of games. Now, we talked about the starting rotation earlier. It figures to be Steve Adesso, Chris Amato, and Troy Zaffino, 3 juniors. We might even see one more pitcher in the starting rotation. But all the pitchers on the staff that are left over are going to be in this bullpen and get chances to pitch in innings late down the stretch, and that's always going to be important. Now, you talked about Anthony Scudillo, Kyle Zarnecki, Tyler Rubino, and maybe some younger sophomores. Who do you see as the key contributors out of the bullpen, and in what roles, meaning either setup or long relief?
Well, one of the names that you left out is Brian Dowling, and again, we're not sure if he's going to be a starter, which he was last year, or a reliever this year. If we settle on a 3-man rotation and he's not one of those 3 arms. The bullpen is so important in the beginning of the year, John. As you know, pitch counts aren't really that high, as you break for the regular season. So, when you get to that first week of the season, you're kind of looking to split it up, maybe 5 innings for the starter, 2 innings for the reliever. And if we could have a closer who, hopefully it could be like a Dowling or a Rubino or a Scudillo, it could be any of them.
Now, who do you think out of those names that you mentioned in the bullpen could step up and have a monster year and maybe earn a spot in the rotation later on?
Well, I would say between Dowling and Scudillo, I would say one of them's definitely going to emerge. Brian was an all-county pitcher as a sophomore. Didn't have the type of season he wanted to as a junior last year. If he reverts back to the form that he showed as a sophomore, the sky's the limit for him, whether it's a starter or a reliever.
Well, Dowling's certainly going to be an X factor for Wayne Hills, and the bullpen is going to be very big, but Wayne Hills has a huge advantage in their pitching depth because most high schools only have 1 or 2 horses at the front end of the rotation. Wayne Hills, maybe not their legitimate ace just yet, but they have 5 or 6 pitchers that are all very good.
Yeah, we don't have a 1, 2, and 3. We have a 1, A, B, and C. So, we're confident in all 3, 4. We might even go to the letter D. At any given day, we can roll anybody out there that we are very confident in.
Well, pitching is definitely going to be a strength of this Patriot team, and that'll pay huge dividends come playoff time. Well, as we stand in front of the Wayne Hills bench, let's talk about the bench a little bit. Some guys who aren't clear starters yet on this 2011 Wayne Hills team that are going to be riding the pine a little bit for Wayne Hills, that will come in role situations and could play a big part later in games. You mentioned some of the outfielders, such as Joe Rapp, Micah Bate, and then, of course, in the infield, you'll probably be calling up sophomores such as Eric Moskal, Christian Rodriguez, and a couple of catchers. Who out of those guys do you think is ready to come up now and get a pinch hitting appearance here or a defensive sub there that could really help this team?
Well, besides the guys that we had named who are going to be guys who fill spots when our pitchers pitch, because again, most of our pitchers play other positions. Probably the two sophomores that you mentioned, Micah Bate and maybe an Eric Moskal, would probably be the two leaders right now as far as getting a pinch hit. But it could be a guy like Joe Rapp if he's not in. Could be a guy like yourself, Johnny Vittas, if he's not in the game. Really, we have a pretty deep bench too. And
that's certainly going to help. Now, looking at the catching, if myself is in the infield, there's catcher, like we said, is a very important position. Who are you going to carry two guys on the bench as a bullpen catcher? Because Josh Cote and Nick Appalucci are definitely worthy of being on a varsity bench.
Yeah, we're probably not, okay, because those guys need to play. They need to play every day rather than sit on the bench and not play. That would stunt their growth, so to speak. So you are the number 2 catcher right now, and guys like Josh Cote and possibly Nick Appalucci are going to see the majority of the time down on the JV level.
Well, Goldy, thanks very much for all your insight with going position by position with this Wayne Hills team. They're certainly going to be a force to be reckoned with in North Jersey. Now, first and foremost with this Wayne Hills team, a new manager in charge, Coach Rella, who is the pitching coach in the past several seasons for Wayne Hills, steps in to take over the reins with this team. What kind of coaching does he bring to a baseball program that has a history of success?
Well, I mean, like you talked about the 3 seniors that we lost. Well, we also lost our skipper, Coach Iannello. The good news is Coach Rella takes over, having been his right-hand man for 10 years. So really nothing's going to change. The Atlanta Braves made a coaching move this year. Bobby Cox retired. His right-hand man is taking over. So nothing's going to change with the Patriots. It's still the same practices, the same structure that we've always had. It's just a different name.
Well, continuity always helps with like we talked about, a very experienced team. It's nice to have some comfort and not see too many drastic changes. But speaking of changes on the farm level, Coach Giardiello takes over the JV team and Coach Hayes the freshman team. And it's always important to have a strong farm system coming up looking into the future. What did you see in those guys bringing them into the program, and how are they going to help the program at the lower levels?
Well, they're baseball guys. All 3 of our coaches, starting with Coach Rella, Coach Giardiello, and Coach Hayes, all 3 played in the NJAC, which is probably one of the best college conferences in the country. So they are all, and they've all played for great college coaches. So they are baseball guys through and through. They know the game of baseball, and that's what we've seen out of Coach Giardiello and Coach Hayes as of now. And Coach Giardiello has experience too, having coached at one of our rivals, Old Tapan, for the past couple of years. So these are guys who know the game of baseball.
Well, their experience will certainly help this Wayne Hills team as the season goes along.
Absolutely.
Hello and welcome to the Lady Patriots softball field. I'm Anthony Scudillo alongside Coach Jon Goldstein. Now, Coach Goldy, this Lady Patriots comes into every year with the mentality of county and state championships. What are they going to have to do this year in order to get there?
Well, they're an experienced bunch this year. Okay, they took some lumps last year, finished about a game or 2 over 500, and like you stated before, their goals are pretty high: county championship, state championship. They have the horses to do it this year.
All right, we're standing here behind the dish. Now, Gold, star player back here, the Pop. What can you tell me about her?
Well, dare I say, the best battery in Passaic County, between Erica Wills and Jamie Pospischal behind the plate catching. You won't find 2 better in Passaic County. Jamie, great fielder, stud hitter. I mean, she mashes. She can spray it to everywhere on the field, left, right, center, you name it. She's got a lot of pop in her bat, and she's a stud behind the plate. Another returning all-county player.
Well, another exciting player to watch on this Lady Patriots team. Now, we're standing on the pitching rubber right now. Obviously, they have a star here in Erica Wills. What can you tell me about her?
We are in the circle, Anthony. This is where it all happens for the Lady Patriots. They have a 4-year starter in Erica Wills. She's been all-county, probably a 3-year all-county player. Lefty, which for a softball pitcher brings a different little movement to the ball. She's tough. Now, she thinks she can strike me out, but I'm not so sure about that. But she's tough in the circle.
All right, Gold, we're standing at first base now. Last year, there was a star player here in Steph Zigman. How do you replace, a girl like her?
Well, you don't replace a girl like Stephanie. She brought so much to the team last year, leadership-wise. She's off to a great start at the University of Vermont right now. We wish her the best. It's actually the one spot on the diamond that the Lady Patriots are inexperienced. You've heard of Susie Q. We got Susie P. Susie Pasquarello is going to man first base for us. Sat out last year with a wrist injury. So, she's an unknown commodity, but they have confidence in her. As long as she can field the position, the Patriots will be all right at first.
And as a junior, she does have time to develop into a better player. Obviously, the Patriots do have high expectations every year, and they're hoping that she performs. Gold, what has always been a strength for the Lady Patriots is their middle infielders. What can you tell us about them this year?
Should be a strength this year as well, Anthony. To our left, we have Emily Spizzanti, a 3-year starter, 4-year varsity Leonard winner. When she broke into the lineup as a freshman, she broke in because of her speed. Great speed on the base paths and in the field. Shows unlimited range, gets any pop-up like over first base, she's going over there to catch it. Any ground ball up the middle, she's going to field it. Has a very good arm, gets it over to first base in a hurry. Great fielder. Over here to our right, man in the shortstop position, Kelly Burian. Kelly's a returning starter from last year, only a junior, so by the time she leaves here, she will be a 3-year starter. Very, very athletic. She's a girl who plays soccer, toyed around with basketball for a little bit. She's what you call an athlete, and that's what you need at the shortstop position.
All right, we're sitting on third base now, where a good friend of mine plays. I consider her a sister, Meg McVeigh. What can you tell me about her?
Well, Anthony, I think the common theme that you're going to be seeing around the Lady Patriots this year is returning starter, returning starter, returning starter. Basically, at almost every position besides first base. Meg McVeigh returns to the hot corner. And again, Meg is a fierce hitter. We're playing baseball. Sometimes the softballs are coming onto our field. The girl can hit. So as far as her fielding, she's kind of like a brick wall down there, right? You hit it at her, she's fielding it. Cannon for an arm, she's what you want at third base, because in softball, most of the plays are going to third base, whether it's a bunt here, a bunt there, a lot of bunting in softball. She's fielding them, throwing them across the diamond. A stronghold for the Patriots at third base.
And speaking of strength, I'm pretty sure that her biceps are larger than mine, so strength is not a problem for Miss McVeigh. Now we're going to move over to center field. Another good friend of mine, Nicole Modak, a senior leader, and a lot of the girls look up to her on his team. What can you tell me about her?
Anthony, another 4-year letter winner. It seems like the Lady Patriots are littered with 4-year letter winners, which can only mean good things for them, okay? Nicole actually started her career in the infield at third base, okay? Moved to the outfield, I believe, as a sophomore. Now she's taking over the captaincy of the outfield. Center field is the boss. Okay, any balls hit into the alleys, she's the one in charge. Okay, she might be small in stature, but big in experience.
Yeah, she's a real great player, and like you said, a 4-year letter winner. She is one of the key components to this year's success. We're now in the outfield grass. Gold, one of the things this Lady Patriots team has is experience, and you got some real studs in the outfield.
Well, Anthony, there is a battle going on in left field. The starter has not been named yet. We got 2 girls battling it out between Alyssa Picarello and Julia Slater. The good news is, I've spoken to Miss Hertzberg, they're both going to be in the lineup. Okay, now, they're both not going to play left field, but they're both going to be in the lineup. So if one of them's in left field, the other one's going to have their DP position, which means her bat is going to be in the lineup. Mm-hmm. 2 very good bats, okay? Fielding is a little below the way they hit, okay? But 2 really good bats. Picarello with power, okay, and Slater slaps the ball all over the place. Both those bats are going to be in the lineup on a daily basis. It's just a matter of who's going to be out in the field.
We're going to move it on over to right field, where the Suge, Carly Sujan, plays. What can you tell us about the right field position?
Well, Carly broke into the lineup about midway through the year last year as a freshman. She's another one of those, small in stature girls, but, big in heart and with a cannon for an arm. As a matter of fact, Anthony, I think we're going to come up with a nickname of the Smurfs for the outfield. Because if you have Sujan in right, Modak in center, and Slater in left, you're talking about 3, pretty pint-sized girls, but they can play. Let me tell you, they can track balls in the outfield. They get to everything. They field it. They catch it. They throw it. I mean, it should be a strong point for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this is a shorter outfield, but they are very important to this year's title run. Now, Gold, Coach Hirschberg's really confident in her starting players. What can you tell me about the bench?
Well, Anthony, as we turn around and look at the bench, that's basically what you're looking at. Unfortunately, maybe the one not so strong point for the Patriots is they're not that deep. All right, it's kind of like their starting team, and then they really don't have much help coming off the bench. However, that's what the younger levels are for, to establish kids at the JV level and the freshman level. Okay, so whereas the bench might not be that strong this year, okay, we're building for the future, with the lower levels. So unfortunately, you're looking at it.
Well, of course, you do have time during the season to develop those players, like you said, and you probably see a girl or two come up midway through the season and make a splash.
Yeah, there's a couple girls battling. You got Emma Nochese, you got Alexa Beck is in the mix. Melanie Siasic is an up and coming freshman. So they have some girls. I'm not saying the cupboard is bare, but for varsity softball, okay, the 9 or 10 girls that we talked about is basically what we're talking about.
Well, luckily for them, those 9 or 10 girls are very experienced and poised for a title run.